And we're live.
Nice.
Welcome, Brian.
Thanks, Mike. Happy to join you here.
Happy to be here with you. And I am, you are not Frank DiBenedetto.
No, I'm not Frank.
So
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
well, it's Frank got called away last minute. So Brian was going to be here anyway as our guest today. And Frank can't make it today. So it's us, man. We're just going to hang out and have a good time. And I know you have a busy day, so I'm going to get you out of here in plenty of time.
It's all good. It's all good.
Of course. And my video, my internet has been a little weird today, so hopefully this is coming up okay on the interwebs and people can see us. But Brian, why don't you introduce yourself to folks, and as we're getting started here, tell everybody who you are, where you're from, and
Thanks, Mike. So Brian Doty. I'm the channel development manager here at Unitrends MSP. I like to say that we are the best kept secret in the business continuity and disaster recovery space. Served a lot of time in the enterprise community for sure. And, I think, Unitrends is a little bit newer to the MSP space, more or less aligning with that acquisition with Kaseya. And so it's amazing to get to work with so many MSPs. They're like, wow, we kind of didn't know about this, which is cool.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for showing up. Thanks for being here. And the reason we wanted to have you on the show is to talk about an event that we're doing together coming up.
That's right.
We are going to be doing a joint webinar. We're coming on to talk to you guys, and you guys are coming on to talk to us. And we're gonna talk about a little bit of audit, a little bit of Unitrends, and how to sell BCDR.
Yeah.
So this webinar, I'll keep that up here for a little bit, and folks should go check it out. We're going to unlock the hidden BCDR sales opportunity. So excited to do this with you guys. For people who've watched us over time, you guys know that Frank is a big advocate of business continuity. Really, really important for businesses. And I think over the past few years, I think. Not that is a bad, I don't want to say this is a negative, but I think everybody's kind of been focused on cybersecurity, right? It's like the new shiny object that came into the industry a couple of years ago is cybersecurity.
That's right.
And it kind of pushed that business continuity and cloud and things like that to the side a little bit, I think, where cloud was big a few years ago. And Frank has always been a big advocate of business continuity, even going back, to Hurricane Sandy, really, I know he's told that story many times about what happens when, the lights go out, what happens when the power goes out, how do you keep going, what happens when catastrophe hits. So that's a really important conversation. And I know Frank thinks that's going to explode and be a big thing going forward.
Yeah. And that's absolutely right. Like, you ask those questions, right? And having those conversations with your clients is key, and potential clients too, right? To be able to say, what happens if I just unplug this server here in your office? And, today, like you said, that conversation is coming back around again, because now there's kind of a new twist on the tail, right? With COVID, everybody, worked remote, hey, let's get you remote, let's get you set up. And everybody grabbed the laptop and went home and, signed up on Teams or whatever, cloud service. And so now, like, you have this data that is important, right, to whatever business you're in. And it's valuable information to the operation of the business. And it's living on somebody's laptop in their home office somewhere, outside of that protection that you get from the firewall and everything you get in that work office environment. Now you're behind, whatever, I don't know what provider you have in your area, but like Comcast provides, the $10 rental box. So like, there's some security issues around that, and you have to be able to protect that data just as well, because it could be that, Susie's got payroll spreadsheets, or I don't know what she has on her laptop, but it's like, how are you protecting that endpoint? How are you protecting that data? Regardless of where it lives. And, have you gone through that checklist with your clients to say, hey, has some stuff kind of moved from the server to Susie's laptop, right? That's what I think changed a lot in the last year. We've seen maybe it was already happening, but we've seen an explosion in it, right?
Right. So yeah, it's going to be fun. We're gonna have a good time. That's the 23rd, by the way, for folks watching here. I'll put that back up on the screen throughout here. It's auditforit.com/audit unitrends. So go check that out. It's March 23rd, which is a Tuesday. Yep. Going to be at 11 a.m. So that's a little earlier than we usually do, but it's perfect timing, I think. Anywhere between 11 and 2, we like to start. So for folks watching, obviously, as you're coming on, Frank is not here today. Frank had to take the day off, but Brian is here. We're going to just talk a little bit about the webinar that we're doing coming up, a little bit about sales, a little bit about the weather. I don't know, how's the weather where you are, Brian? It's spring today in here. Up here.
Yeah, it's gorgeous here. Western PA, we got hit pretty hard this winter, and not too bad, right? We're used to it, but it was a good winter. It was solid, and now it's like in a week, right? We were skiing on Sunday. I took my daughter skiing for the first time.
I hate skiing
on Sunday. I think after the first 15 minutes of me trying to teach her, she hated skiing too, right?
It's not the idea of skiing. It's not like the going, it's fun to do. I mean, skiing is fun, right? You get on skis, go downhill. It's like, who doesn't like that? I don't like the idea of going towards snow. To me, there's other things you can do.
Yeah. No, when it's cold, it's good times. It's good times. But I started at a pretty young age. My parents had me out on skis pretty young, and always had a lot of fun doing it. And I haven't been out for a while, and you use some muscles that you don't use every day. And on top of that, trying to teach a 5-year-old, it was interesting. But I can say by the end of it, she was happy. She wants to go again, and she made it the whole way down the hill with my help, of course. But we got on the lift and rode the lift back up to the top. She was blown away. It was good time. It was a magical moment for her. So it was good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I love that stuff. But
that's cool.
We got home, and this is like an hour away, right? And we get home, and we live across the street from a golf course, and there's people out playing golf. And I said, you see that? You live in a town where you can go skiing and play golf all in the same day if you really wanted to.
Yeah, well, sometimes down up here in the Northeast, or where you are, is not. It's cold. I mean, it's not like.
Yeah.
When it's cold, it's cold. This time of year, though, it's funny. You're right. You can be like, in the morning you can go skiing, and then in the afternoon it's like 60 degrees and snow's melting.
Yeah,
it's crazy. Yeah, it's pretty nice today. It's up here in Connecticut. It's a nice day. 63 it got up to, and tomorrow it'll get back down to 50 something, and then the day after that I think it's going to snow.
Yeah, I haven't put away the snowblower yet. I was about to, and I was talked out of it.
Yeah, I don't put the snowblower away until April, man. I'm like, I don't trust it. I don't trust it. Like, it's gonna snow.
It's kind of like having an umbrella. Like, it doesn't rain when you have the umbrella, but when if you don't have it, it's going to pour. And it's the same thing, I think, with the snowblower. As soon as you put it away for the season, you're going to get like that last, superstorm. What did they? I'm trying to remember what they called it a couple years ago. Snowmageddon. That's what. Snowmageddon.
Yeah.
We'll get that.
Once I get into April, like the end of April, I'm like, it can snow, whatever. It's just going to melt the next day. I refuse to snow blow my driveway at the end of April. So
that's a good rule to live by, right?
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, this is, and we talk a lot about, sales on this. We call this the weekly sales wrap. So generally I'll ask Frank, what's going on this week in sales, and Frank is out there as an MSP really doing the selling. He's the founder of Audit, but he's really, his job is, he works full-time in the MSP and we kind of run Audit. He's involved in it, but he's out there selling for his MSP. So he's always got a cool story. I figured I'll put you on the spot and see if you've got anything that you're talking to a lot of MSPs. What kind of cool things are you hearing? You hearing anybody have a neat story this week by way of selling?
I mean, more challenges, right? Like I'm hearing about challenges from MSPs. Really, I mean, struggling to get past that budgetary constraints with some of their clients, right? Like that's one of those hurdles that, and look, I worked for an MSP for a while and I had those conversations and I didn't always win. It's just, you're not always going to win, but I think it's helpful if you have the right information and you have the right tools kind of going into it. And I learned some lessons and I was trying to apply that to some of these situations that I was hearing this week. And one was just like a client that they really wanted a full BCDR solution, right? But the budget was it just didn't exist. And I think, sometimes MSPs try to get into all the details. I think by nature, a lot of us are technical. I know I am. Sure. My knee jerk, sales move is to like throw up all the specs and details to the client. And I've made that mistake a million times and I've done it through my whole career. It's just instinctive in me to be a technical person. And, it goes over people's heads, right? So what we kind of came back with was like, well, what's the outcome that they're trying to avoid or the outcome they're trying to get as a result of this? And, when we sat down and kind of did some back of napkin math on, what does downtime look like for this client if they don't have a solution that can spin up fast, and they're using something that's going to have a longer time for recovery, which is like what they're currently doing. They have a NAS in-house, so like local, just file level storage, and then a tape drive that they take off of that. And then they had this end client had somebody taking it home like every other day or something like that. So there was a lot of problems with that setup, but the client kept saying like, hey, it works, it covers our needs. And it was like, well, what if we look at what the time is to recover on a setup like that, on a system like that? What if we had to go to tape and we start to spin up and realize that the tape's corrupt? And so now you have to go to the previous tape, so you lost days of data. And those scenarios, right? So like having that conversation where you're like, okay, well, let's just spell out what this would look like if we were to actually go through a disaster event or some kind of data loss event. And I mean, I don't know. We'll see what happens with this client of theirs. I'm not sure if they'll win them over or not, but at least it's an existing client. They have a relationship, and it was like, this was one of those like leftover things that they weren't able to like swap out right away when they took the client on. So I've seen some of that myself. And, there's times where, the best solution, just isn't going to win them over that day, and sometimes it's just not the right answer for everyone's needs. At least in that particular scenario, I could see a big improvement and a big mitigation of risk to that end client, right? So avoiding the risk of, hey, if the hits the fan, am I going to be able to recover? And like, how long am I going to be down? What's that going to cost the business? And it's important to have those conversations. And I think that's what's going to be really cool about this webinar workshop that we're doing, is we'll be able to pare some of that down into a more simplified conversation for people.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the goal. I'll put that up there again since you brought it up. That's the 23rd, Tuesday, the 23rd. Me, Brian, and Frank will be talking about selling BCDR. And, we're obviously making it simple is the key, right? Like if people don't understand this, and that's the biggest problem that MSPs face, I think, is everybody faces this in selling. It's like, because if you're selling something, you know more about that thing than the person you're selling it to, and you should, right? Because it's your area of expertise. So it's your job to make it easy. But let's face it, if you're selling kitchen sinks, the person understands that you pull the handle or turn the knobs and water comes out. You don't need to educate them on that kind of stuff. There's not that learning curve. Technology is confusing. I mean, it doesn't get more confusing, I think, than selling IT services, unless you're selling medical equipment. It's complex.
It is.
So that's always the challenge. And I don't know if you have. I'm sure you have plenty of advice. Because you were an MSP. You were in those shoes. You're technical by nature, as you said, and now you're working at a Unitrends, and you're on both sides of the table. Is like what? It's easier said than done, right? Like I always tell MSPs, and I tell anybody who's in my years and years of selling, is like, just put yourself on the other side of the table and realize that the SMB, the small business, that person on the other side is not technical. And even if they are technical, they probably aren't as technical as you. So use the acronyms. Number one, don't speak in any acronyms. Always assume that they don't know, and just to keep it simple. You look for signs, like that when their eyes glaze over and or they're fidgeting. You've got to look for those signs, and they where you can ease back. I don't know if you have some advice on keeping it simple.
Yeah, I mean, and it's tough because like I said, I was there, and I was that guy that would love to, and people would indulge me too. That was the bad thing, right? Because people would be like, well, tell me about how that works. And it's like, oh, well, great. I get to geek out for that, but that's bad. Don't do it. Don't fall for that. Right. That's probably my best advice, is don't fall into that. They're really interested, because like, as soon as you get like two sentences into your explanation, you've lost them. Right. They have you probably threw out 3 or 4 terms that they already don't know. So you lost them, you lost their interest, you lost their attention. I had somebody tell me this a long time, and I'm sure people have heard this before, but I'm trying to remember where I was and how I picked this up. But somebody explained it to me that everybody has a favorite radio station, WIIFM, right? What's in it for me? And I think, you kind of like couple that with that empathy thing that you were talking about, like put yourself in their shoes and realize that they don't really care about technology. They just care what it does for them. What's the end result? And I think if you kind of put those things together and think like that, it goes a long way to building rapport with people and having success, because I've fallen into it so many times, and really, even those budgetary conversations that always inevitably come up, right? And you get clubbed over the head with like, they thought it would cost 1/10 of the price, or they're annoyed that it's a recurring fee for this solution or that solution. Those kind of conversations seem to fall away a bit more when you stay higher level and you talk about what that end result is, right? Like, this is the outcome that we're trying to have for the business, and this is what it's going to cost to get there.
Right.
And if you can simplify it like that, I think it goes a long way to success.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely spot on, man. The last thing you want to do is get them go down the rabbit hole of talking price with them and trying to convince them why they should spend a few dollars more than what they're spending until they see the value of something. The price should be just like, okay, well, yeah, we need to fix this. We need to do this. I really, really want to do it. What's it gonna be? How much is it gonna cost me to do it? They should already be like, I need this before you get into that pricing thing.
Right. And like, it's one thing to say like, okay, there's a range for a solution, right? There's a range of cost for a solution. And, within that, there's some key features that might be different, but, to have a conversation with a client about business continuity, for example, that's usually one of the more expensive solutions in an MSP stack. And typically it's one that there's some hurdles, right? To talk to your client, to explain to them the difference between a BCDR solution and some file level backup that I got for, a penny a gig or whatever it is that you mark up. And there's a use case for that. It has a place for it, but there's a significant difference between those two products. Now to an end client, they both back up your files. What's the difference, right?
Right.
So, and one costs enormously more than the other.
Right. Yeah. And if they don't understand the value, what are they going to do? They're going to go with the cheaper one.
Right. And I inherited some clients that way as an MSP, and it was like, it's a tough conversation to get into. We're going to increase your spend on this one area tenfold. Okay. And I had I had at least one that was, okay, sure, that's what we need, and that made sense. It was a slam dunk. It was easy.
Yeah, but most people you really have to do your work to make sure they understand the value, they understand why this is important, and that they're not going to be sticker shocked and be telling you no or trying to negotiate on price when they should be really looking at what the value is going to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, let's I'm going to put this up one more time here, and I put this in the comments. Doesn't always show up in every place. I'll make sure it's in the comments on, I think, LinkedIn. It may not show up, but make sure to go to auditforit.com/audit unit trends, one word, and register for this webinar. It's going to be great. I'm going to be there just listening to Brian and Frank talk. So Brian and Frank will be presenting and talking about how to sell more BCDR. And that is on March 23rd, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hey, Brian, thanks for coming on and filling in for Frank. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike.
And
good to see you again.
Yeah, great to see you, man. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We always appreciate you joining us, and whether you're listening live or listening on the recording. And we'll talk to you next week. Keep on elevating IT, everybody.
Take care.